Alrighty guys, it is DT here today and I'm bringing you another video today. This time I'm asking the question, does Murder Jones deserve more episodes? First of all, I will tell you what this video is not. This video is in fact not asking if Murder Jones deserves more episodes beyond episode 8, as that's kind of harder to say. But this is asking, did the series deserve more episodes in general? The most recent Murder Jones intermission project actually inspired me to make this video because it showed me, as well as many other fans, that the potential of more stories were explored. And before we start, I want to thank all of you for allowing me this long break I took. I really needed it after uploading as frequently as I did. I don't know how consistent I'll be moving forward, but I'm going to try my best, you guys. I miss you. So many fans have been waiting for episode 8 and hoping that we would get a season 2 and more episodes, feeling as though Murder Jones deserved much more than it already had. But I wanted to discuss the far less discussed side of this argument and ask, did the show deserve more? And by more episodes, I mean in terms of content bridging the episodes together. Since while Murder Jones has continuity in the show, it's a bit more episodic, not following right where the last episode had left off. With the expectations of Murder Jones episode 6 to 7, because in the episode it ended with the fall of the elevator after V got turned to a dingo meal, and in the beginning of episode 7 it starts right after the collapse of the elevator, and to be fair, 5 to 6 was a direct continuation, since we pick up when all the characters were staring at one another. But with the episodic nature for the majority of the episodes, that leaves gaps of off-screen events we actually don't get to see, and if included as episodes, would give us about 10 whole episodes in total if we put one between each, like what intermission did for the gap between episodes 4 and 5, since the amount of content intermission provided was about 25 minutes worth just to bridge over the 2 episodes. Which again has led many to wonder, did the show deserve more episodes than the 8 we already received? And if the gap in between episodes that is certainly worth exploring would be the gap between episode 2 Heartbeat and episode 3 The Promining. Episode 2 Heartbeat saw Thad, Uzi, and N returning to the worker drone colony to investigate the truth behind the recent drone disappearances, to which they found an Elrich version of Jay, which actually turned out to be Sin the whole time. To which we saw how Sin was able to use holograms of characters to trick and deceive her victims, when she tries to trick Uzi by using Thad's real body to project a decoy of him and using the same voice. But thankfully Uzi did not fall for that. She did trick Uzi by using an N hologram to steal the railgun, but in the end the real N comes back to save Uzi from the Elrich monster and results in the self-destruction of her railgun, leaving it inoperable for the time being. Questioning what even is he, refusing to take his hand. To which her father Khan comes to comfort her, as N leaves in shame. But at the very end of the episode, we see Uzi laying in bed, completely distraught over the day's events, looking up at her crime web in her room, and the episode ends, leaving Uzi and N's friendship future a mystery. But at the start of the episode, we see a girl get murdered by Doll, who we haven't been formally introduced to at this point. Following this, we get to see how Uzi's holding up since she is laying in the bed and is still feeling pretty guilty from the events of the last episode, episode 2. Episode 3, V is tied up in the space pod, trying to convince N to let her go, which he refuses to do so. And eventually when V does escape, N goes to the prom to save his attendees from V's planned slaughtering, but on the way, he encounters Uzi in her dress after escaping from Doll. And the two end up going to prom together before Doll storms it and they all have to fight her, eventually leading to the discovery of Doll's room with the key and the bodies of her folks who were killed at the hands of V. Let's discuss the gap between these 2 episodes. It's presumed that at least 5 months have passed since 2 to episode 3, since that is the earliest of the murders that Doll actually committed of the prom nominees. So that means for 5 months, Uzi attended school as usual with no N, since the two's friendship was pretty much torn at that point in time. And meanwhile, Doll was committing these murders under Uzi's nose, and it wasn't until all the posters were hung up is when Uzi really started to sense that something was fishy. And it's very likely at this point in time when V was going to meet up with her bestie Lizzie, and that's how this relationship actually formed. As we see during episode 3, they had some hangout time sessions that were never shown on screen. But you may be wondering, Gage, how in the world was V possibly hanging out with Lizzie if she was chained up in the space pod the entire time? Okay, first of all, mega pause on that. Secondly, not so fast there, viewer. Remember at the end of episode 2, the chain was broken, but V actually hid it from N and pretended to be hostage the whole time. But the truth was that she was sneaking out whenever N was away to go hang out with Lizzie and do other things, and then when N would return, she would go right back to the space pod and pretend that she was still locked up and helpless. So let's see what happens between V and Lizzie in this gap in time. Well, as I alluded to earlier, we do see some of this during episode 3. When Lizzie introduces the crowd to her new bestie, we see in the first image V flying from the space pod to Lizzie's window, presumably, as we see in this Girl Boss Alert photograph. with Lizzie laying in bed to be greeted by V at the window, looking to hang out. In the next image, we see V and Lizzie taking a selfie next to a snowman that's been made entirely out of a human skeleton with snow on top. Following this, we see the two in another selfie taken in the bathroom this time, to which we see a worker drone's head in the toilet bowl. As well, we see V holding a worker drone by his feet, and looks like Lizzie helped her new bestie kill a bunch of worker drones, but we don't know this for sure if they're seriously hurt or dead. They may just be playing, since Lizzie says she's done with all the murder or whatever, but it's hard to say. If we were to place an episode here, it would surely focus on their friendship and how it actually developed. It maybe would give us insight on just how close the two actually were to one another, which would explain who Lizzie was, texting so much during episode 7. Which could be V, but that's another theory for another time. And before we go to the last gap in time that may help us figure out if the show deserves more episodes or not, the gap between 1 and 2 wouldn't really provide us much, since the gap here is presumably only 12 hours. Now the last gap to be explored is that of episode 3 to episode 4. Episode 3 ended with Doll attempting to kill Uzi, and that was stopped when Uzi used her absolute solver to catch the bullet, causing Doll to leave, frightened, feeling bad that Uzi also had the solver infection as well. And as we know, in episode 4 starts out at Camp 98.7 with students taking a class trip together. And during this camping trip, Uzi eventually went on to lose herself to the absolute solver program and went on to slaughter a ton of worker drones. But we know that already. But what happened between 3 and 4? And would it warrant more content? Well, we know that 8 months take place between these two episodes. It's likely that a gap in time, Uzi would have had solver outbursts like what we saw during episode 4. It's possible this has happened multiple times during these 8 months, but maybe when it strikes during episode 4, it was much more catastrophic, since she was around many other worker drones at the time in a small area, allowing her to kill many more drones than she would have previously. And it's likely that N and V has never seen Uzi lose control like this during the 8 months, since they seem a bit shocked to see that Uzi could even be in this state of being. But maybe we could have also gotten more insight into the history of Nori and her time at 98.7 during the 8 months, maybe through flashback sequences, and how Khan and Nori really met. Also, we know that the entire reasoning for the camping trip was to further investigate Doll in the first place. However, Doll was absent from the episode. She only appeared in a few scenes, since we only seen her in brief instances. Maybe we would get to see how Uzi came up with the plan to take the trip to the camp in the first place. Yes, that was a Discord ping in my background. I don't know who that was, but I'll check in a moment. And as we know, the gap between episodes 4 and 5, we already got an adaptation to, thanks to the Mergens Intermissions project, which I already did do a review for earlier in the week, before my long break. But to make Intermission sound brief, it gave us context to how Uzi went on to gain control of her solver form, and while her mastering it did feel a bit rushed and sudden at the end of the episode, the creator did comment on the review, saying that the ending was one of the things she actually disliked. However, I want to make it clear that this is just a minor nitpick I had, and overall the episodes turned out pretty great in my opinion, and inspired me to make this video exploring many more time skips. But let me know down in the comments if you think Murder Drones deserve more episodes, or do you think the 8 we got was good enough for you? I personally think we deserved a bit more episodes, and a bit more content overall, but that's just me. Thanks for watching, subscribe, thank you for waiting for me to come back, I love you all and I missed you, and take care.